People often come by my streams and they're surprised to see that I very rarely play ball. Sometimes even on YouTube I'll get comments asking when the next ball video would be. And the reason I stopped playing ball as much is because he's just worse than he used to be in every way. But I think to explain that, I have to start by explaining why he was good. In Overwatch 1, each team had 2 tanks. Crazy, right? One tank was the initiator and the other was the enabler. Wrecking Ball was the first tank to do both of those things very well. His speed and tankiness put him way above the rest, but then you throw in a boop and a pile driver, and you have arguably the most flexible tank in Overwatch 1. He could tank, he could hit, and he could run. The catch was you had to be good, and I'm not talking about good at Overwatch, I mean good at Wrecking Ball, which is an entirely different skill because you had to have basically a degree in grapple physics. But I digress. With this flexibility, he had so many different plays he could make. Let's start with the plays that involved enemy tanks. There was a play where if a tank overpeaked, a ball who set up behind could knock them in or out of cover. This often led to that tank getting punished or a lot of cooldowns being used to save him. Needless to say, the new tank knockback reduction in combination with every tank just having way more health makes this play pretty much useless. So booping tanks is useless. What about 1v1ing tanks? Back in Overwatch 1, it was a more viable option since they had less health. Using all your cooldowns on that one tank probably meant they were going to die in the next 2 seconds. Now it's very difficult to ever win the 1v1 because, again, more health, but also a lot of them have more utility. The utility that Wrecking Ball got was a quicker pile driver, but you're not really going to get the opportunity to use a pile driver more than once in a single 1v1. So it's safe to say that his 1v1 game versus tanks scaled very poorly. So for the most part, tanks make up one less hero that Ball can play against. Or wait, actually 2, because there was 2 tanks, right? Yeah, so there's 2 characters that you don't get to play against. Surely this means you get to play against the other 4 heroes, right? I mean, they don't have an extra tank to protect them, so that should make things easier. Allow me to introduce mobility creep. Every new hero has mobility, and even the older ones got better mobility. This means 2 things. 1, they can all chase Wrecking Ball better, and 2, they can all run from him better. But hey, at least we got rid of stuns, right? Oh wait, there's still Sleep Dart, Hack, Nade, Hook, Punch, Javelin, and 20 plus boops or slows to completely deny an engagement. And you know, the worst part is, when you finally manage to jump past all these hurdles, all it takes is 1 cleanse. Who am I kidding? Even if there is no cleanse, any damage Ball does just gets out healed, especially if he's the only mobile hero on the team. You might say, okay, just don't play Ball if he's the only mobile hero, which fair enough, but my point is, it wasn't always like that. He was the most flexible tank. Getting all these abilities out meant that your other tank got to play the game, but now it just means you're on the wrong hero. A play Wrecking Ball was exceptionally good at was diving snipers. The idea was he had the mobility to jump on them, and if he did, his team would be able to freely rotate or challenge the enemy team. Oftentimes, this sniper may get pocketed by a hero like Mercy, but that was fine because Wrecking Ball could actually threaten the Mercy, so it was a 2v1 he had a chance of winning. So nowadays, not only are you asking your tankless team to try and push into a team that has a tank that can actually kill them, but you're also trying to win a 2v1 that's a million times harder because they gave Mercy the tap straight from Apex Legends, so she's basically unshootable. So yeah, despite being a buffed solo tank, they somehow managed to make this interaction less favorable for the tank. Ball has to go in and make space, whereas before he didn't. He could rely on his other tank to take some hits or protect the team. Now, if Ball doesn't go in immediately, his team quite literally has no front line. Since there's no other tank to worry about, the enemy team can keep tabs and use all their cooldowns on him because denying the one tank from making space is one of the most valuable plays you can make in Overwatch 2. A concept I didn't really go into is the idea of countering tanks in Overwatch 2. It was kind of implied when I mentioned CC, but I want to take an extra moment just to emphasize that this wasn't half the problem that it is now. Let's look at the worst offender, Ball versus Sombra. She had the D-stealth to hack you, which means you could cancel hack or engage quick enough to where the hack didn't matter. Not only that, but even if she did get the hack off, Ball wasn't the only source of space making, so if you lived, it was fine, just try again. Now, that skill matchup is almost non-existent because not only can she hack you in stealth, Sombra can literally spend the entire game invisible hacking Ball and its value because that's trading the DPS for a tank. Let's talk about his ultimate. In Overwatch 1, it was easily at least an A tier ultimate because of how quick it farmed, how good it was at splitting teams, and just the actual lethality of it. Now I'd say it competes with Doomult for the worst tank ultimate. Once again, tanks are unfazed by it. Their health lets them eat half a minefield, and a knockback stops them from bouncing from mine to mine. A lot of ultimates can counter it and get more value. And then there's also abilities that straight up counter an ultimate. Oh, and let me remind you guys that mobility creep happened, so most heroes have no problem dodging it, and if they happen to be one of the few heroes that can't just mobility away, then there's plenty of new get out of jail free cards. So let's get some bullet points here. If the enemy team wants to win, all they need to do is stop Wrecking Ball's engagement, which is a lot easier to do now because he's the only tank they have to worry about. He can't outmuscle any of the tanks. There's just as many, if not more, stuns, boops, and slows in Overwatch 2 than there were in Overwatch 1. Every new hero has mobility, a lot of the old ones got more. And then lastly, Minefield got demoted to competing for the worst tank ult. I mean, that's as good of a list as any to just not play the hero. So what would I change about Ball? Well, 6v6 is off the table, so the second best thing would be to make him a DPS. There's a lot of balancing that has to happen there, but making him smaller and with less health is probably the closest thing we'll get to that Overwatch 1 playstyle, where you make space for your tank or your tank makes space for you. Chances are that's probably off the table too, so I guess they could buff him to make him like broken and then inevitably nerf him the next patch. I'm thinking something like make him CC immune while adaptive shields are up. I'm talking no stuns, no slows, and no boops. Just Ball gameplay at its best. I think that would be very fun. Maybe not for everybody else, but definitely for the Ball player. There is one change that I feel like they could reasonably make that wouldn't make Ball OP, but would just make him way more enjoyable. And that would be to make it so that he doesn't get body blocked. It just doesn't make any sense that a character named the Wrecking Ball can get body blocked by a Tracer. Or any hero for that matter. I don't know, I just find it really annoying when I know what I'm going for, I set up for it, and maybe somebody accidentally walks my direction, so all of a sudden, there goes my engagement. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy, just like a passive when he's in Ball mode that does a very, very small boop if you roll into somebody. Like nothing big, I'm talking like the smallest boop in the game. That way you just don't get body blocked. It doesn't really solve any of the problems I mentioned earlier, but it would make him more consistent, and I think consistency in this case equals more fun. But let's be real here. Ball will never be the same. Most people don't care, and that's fine. Just because some old head like me is telling you, back in my day it used to be better, that doesn't mean you can't have fun playing them yourself. Do what you think will bring you long-term enjoyment. For me right now, that's playing other heroes. It's what I've been doing for months now. Does this mean I'll never play Ball again? No, it just means I'm spoiled and will forever be bitter about the state of Ball. Anyways, I've been meaning to do this video for a while, so I'm glad to finally get it out there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching, and good luck on the grind.